Raising chickens in my backyard started out as just a fun idea, but it turned into something I really love doing. I only have a few dozen birds, and they're not in some huge farm, just a small garden behind my house. But let me tell you, it's been such a rewarding experience. I didn't expect to learn so much along the way. I thought I'd share a bit about how I've raised these chickens from when they were tiny chicks to full-grown egg-laying hens. Getting ready for the chicks. Before I even got the chicks, I had to make sure they'd have a safe space. I built a little coop at the back of the garden with a run where they could walk around during the day. The main thing was making sure it was sturdy enough to keep them safe from predators. There are always foxes and cats sneaking around. Inside the coop, I added some perches and nesting boxes for when the hens would start laying eggs later. When the chicks arrived, I had to keep them indoors for a while, so I set up a brooder, which is just a fancy word for a warm box, where they stay until they get their feathers. I used a big plastic tub, put some wood shavings in the bottom, and hung a heat lamp over it. Chicks need it pretty warm at first, around 95 degrees F, 35 degrees C. I'd lower the temperature week by week until they could handle the outdoor weather. What they eat and drink. Feeding the chicks is pretty simple. When they're young, I gave them special chick starter feed that's high in protein, around 20-24%, so they grow strong. Water's super important too. Chicks drink a lot for their size, so I made sure they always had fresh, clean water, checking their water a few times a day. I added some vitamins to the water for the first week or so, just to give them a little extra boost. As they grew, I switched them to grower feed, which has a bit less protein, but is just right for their needs. Chickens can be messy eaters, though. They kick their bedding into the water and feed all the time, so I had to clean their brooder area every few days to keep things tidy. Moving them outside. When the chicks were about 6 to 8 weeks old, they had enough feathers to handle the outdoors, so I moved them to the coop. I fenced off a part of the garden so they could roam around without wandering too far, but they had plenty of space to scratch, peck for bugs, and explore. At this point, I switched their feed again, this time to developer feed, which helps them as they grow into adults. I'd also toss them some kitchen scraps now and then, vegetable peelings, stale bread, that kind of thing. And of course, they love finding worms and bugs in the garden. Chickens are natural foragers. Daily routine. Every morning, I let the chickens out to wander around the yard. They're pretty good at finding their own food when they're free-ranging, but I still gave them a scoop of grain to make sure they got all the nutrients they need. Chickens are creatures of habit, and they'd be waiting for me near the coop when it was feeding time. In the evening, they'd go back to the coop on their own when it got dark. It's funny how they just know to go back to roost when the sun goes down. I'd close up the coop at night to keep them safe from predators, keeping them healthy. Taking care of their health is one of the most important things. I checked on them regularly to make sure they looked healthy, bright eyes, clean feathers, no signs of mites or anything like that. Chickens can get lice or mites, so I sprinkled some diatomaceous earth in the coop to help keep those pests away. I also gave them a little dust bath area with sand and ash, where they love to roll around and keep themselves clean. I had a few chickens get sick here and there, usually respiratory issues, or some other minor illness. It was a reminder to keep their coop well ventilated and dry. Dampness can lead to all sorts of problems like coccidiosis, which can spread fast. If I saw any symptoms, like a chicken being lethargic or having bloody stools, I treat them right away, usually with medicated feed. Watching them grow into layers. After about 18 to 22 weeks, my hens started laying their first eggs. I'd been looking forward to this moment, and let me tell you, it didn't disappoint. I made sure their nesting boxes were nice and cozy with fresh straw, and I even put some ceramic eggs in a few boxes to give them a hint on where to lay. At this stage, I added crushed oyster shells to their diet for extra calcium. Laying hens need a lot of calcium to produce strong eggshells, so the oyster shells help with that. Sometimes I'd even bake their old eggshells, crush them up, and mix them into their feed. The hens lay pretty regularly, though they slow down a bit in the winter. I could use a light in the coop to keep them laying through the darker months, but I prefer to let them follow their natural cycle. Keeping them happy. Chickens are social animals, and they like a bit of fun. I made sure they had plenty of space to avoid fights, and I gave them some toys and perches to keep them entertained. Chickens can get bored, and when they do, they can cause trouble, pecking at each other or digging up the garden more than usual. I even hung up vegetables for them to peck at, which they love. Introducing new chickens to the flock can be tricky since there's always a pecking order to figure out. It takes time to integrate new birds without them getting bullied, so I did it slowly to avoid too much stress. Dealing with challenges. It hasn't all been smooth sailing. One of the toughest things was dealing with predators. Foxes, raccoons, you name it. I lost a chicken or two to predators in the beginning, which was tough. I learned the hard way to double-check the fencing and lock up the coop tightly every night. The weather was another challenge. During the hot summer months, I made sure they had plenty of water and shade, even freezing water bottles to keep their water cool. In the winter, I insulated the coop with extra straw to keep them warm. The joy of backyard chickens. Despite the challenges, raising chickens has been such a joy. Watching them roam around the yard, hearing their little clucks, and seeing their personalities come out. It's really something special. They're more than just egg layers. They've become part of the family. Some are curious and follow me around the yard, while others are more independent, doing their own thing. Collecting fresh eggs every morning never gets old. There's something so satisfying about it, knowing you've raised these chickens from chicks and now they're giving you fresh food in return. Wrapping it up. So yeah, raising chickens in my backyard has been one of the best things I've done. It's not just about the eggs, though that's a big plus. It's about the connection you build with these animals, and the simple joys of taking care of them. If you're thinking about starting your own little flock, I'd say go for it. It's hard work at times, but it's totally worth it. Plus, there's nothing quite like the feeling of collecting fresh eggs that your happy chickens laid for you.
What do you think about this issue? Please leave a comment below for everyone to know and discuss. Goodbye and see you again.